The careful science and technology behind the spectacular display of all kinds of aquatic animals in captivity will be discussed in our review of modern oceanarium research and technique while we visit Marineland of the Pacific near Los Angeles, California. This is Science in Action. It was about 110 years ago that the world's first recirculating aquarium was designed, built, and operated in London. Now, obviously, many things have happened since then, but most of our newer knowledge in this field has occurred in the past 25 years, and a good part of it in Oceanarium Research has occurred at this institution where we are visiting. It's called Marineland of the Pacific, and it's located along the picturesque coastline of Southern California near Los Angeles. Now, we are the guests of a longtime friend, Vice President and General Manager of Marineland, Mr. William Monahan. Bill, how have you been?
Fine, Earl. Welcome to Marineland. We're really looking forward to discussing some of the research and other problems we have here at the Oceanarium with you.
It would be helpful for us, Bill, if we could have a quick tour around your entire place so we could see what the place looks like.
Well, fine. We're standing on the top of the whale tank. This is 4 stories high and the scene of our whale show that takes place several times during the day.
Yes.
Just over there, we have our oval tank, which is our main fish display. The divers go beneath the water several times a day, feed the fish for the enjoyment of our visitors. And down below, we have a harbor seal pool. This contains a true seal, as opposed to the sea lion that we have in the sea arena,
yes,
which you'll see later on. We have freshwater otters in their own enclosure, and we have walruses right from the Bering Sea. We captured these charming creatures ourselves almost 3 years ago when they were little babies. We have a complex of training tanks on beyond that. The largest of these tanks is a dolphin community tank. It contains bottlenose dolphins from the Atlantic. There are hydrophones in the water, and our visitors can actually hear the dolphins talking to each other. And down below, further along toward the ocean, in a natural amphitheater, we have the sea arena. The sea arena has 3,000 seats and a large pool and stage. This is the scene of our sea lion show and our dolphin show.
Yes.
And further along, at the end of our property, right on the ocean, we have our own pier, where our famous collecting boat, the Geronimo, ties up.
And Boots and Frank, of course, are the people who get all these animals for you.
That's right. They're our collectors. They do a wonderful job for us, catching whales and dolphins.
Well, where should we start right at this moment?
Well, let's start right here. As I said before, this is the whale tank. It has whales and dolphins in it. And in charge of all of our mammals is Curator of Mammals, Mr. David Brown. You know Dave, of course.
Yes, very definitely. Dave, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
I'll catch up with you fellows a little later on.
Thanks, Bill. Dave, how many kinds of animals do you have in this tank?
Well, we have 5 completely different genera. Actually, we have 9 individuals, and ranging from the mighty male pilot whale, which weighs over 4,000 pounds, down to a little common dolphin, which weighs just 150.
But that Phelps killer whale, that's really the one.
This, I think, is the most intriguing animal that we have at Marineland. You know, they're extremely unusual, rather rare, and they weren't even known to exist in American waters until the 1920s. In fact, Frank Bricado, who has been fishing the California coast for almost a lifetime, has only seen 2 schools. And the second school, this school, he caught Swifty, this wonderful little female that now resides in our great circular tank here at the Oceanarium. And here we have the pilot whale. Notice how bulbous this fellow's head is. No wonder some people call him the pot-headed whale. See how it differs from the sharp, pointed snout of the striped dolphin, and also the Pacific bottlenose that you see here leaping with the striped dolphin. In this tank, as I mentioned earlier, we keep 5 species, and I must say they get on very well indeed together.
No problems at all.
No problems at all, and the false killer whale is perhaps the most benign, friendly creature in the tank, in spite of her somewhat formidable dental formation. Of course, she needs these teeth to pursue the fast-swimming, powerful fishes on which she feeds. Fishes like bonita, yellowtail, and mackerel. Notice how nicely she leaps. This torpedo-shaped body enables her to develop great speed.
Fantastic, look at that.
Here we have the old pothead or pilot whale lunging up out of the water once more. This is Bubbles, lunging up to take handouts from the trainer, who is on the platform just above. And here is little Squirt, the smallest pilot whale at Marineland, and here she is again leaping over the hurdle. She's just 8 feet 6 inches long. Now perhaps we should go down and see the otters. And here they are. We have 5 in this enclosure. Little aquatic weasels, members of the weasel family, which spend practically all of their time in freshwater, quite closely related, however, to the enhydra, the sea otter.
Very graceful.
They're very graceful and make very good pets, incidentally, Earl, if you take one young enough. And
But those teeth.
Oh, boy, can they bite. In nature, they live on aquatic plants and berries, young rabbits and rats. They'll also take crawfish, and they particularly relish frogs. Here at Marineland, we feed them a diet of horse meat, mink cereal, and so on, and they get fish once a week as a treat. Shall we go now to our dolphin community tank? In this tank, we keep 6 animals, all of them Atlantic bottlenose dolphins, 1 bull, and 5 cows.
These were flown here from the Atlantic.
Yeah, and were, as a matter of fact, some of the first members of the whale family ever to go up in an airplane. The bottlenose dolphin is a charming beast and is admirably adapted to a life in captivity. They seem to have a built-in smile, and more is known, certainly, about the behavior and physiology of this dolphin than any other member of the cetacea. Here we see the bottlenose dolphins gently taking food from the hands of the diver. These animals seem to have a peculiar affinity for man, and they'd be quite capable, incidentally, of killing a man, and they will kill large sharks very, very readily.
And yet around the diver and around people generally, they're quite docile.
Very much so.
The amazing thing about these animals is the vocabulary they have.
Yes, an eminent linguist, Dr. John Dreher from Lockheed, came and eavesdropped on the conversations of our dolphins, and he informed me they have a very superior language indeed.
Let's turn up the hydrophone for a minute and listen to these sounds. And that's only a small portion of those that they actually have and are known to make.
Yes, that is so, and of course most of these sounds are uttered in a high frequency far beyond the range of human hearing. However, some you can hear without the assistance of underwater listening devices. One of the most intriguing, I think, is the distress call, for when the dolphin is in trouble, it can call assistance by emitting this high-pitched whistle. This seems to be shared by all of the toothed whales, and perhaps, who knows, the baleen whales also.
A lot of things we don't know yet about these animals.
Oh, it's still only on the threshold of our knowledge, I'm afraid. Now let's go to our community tank, and here we see our divers working at the floor of this tank. The tank is, of course, drained, and we are getting ready to take out a small male. I say a small whale. He's 12 foot long and weighs about 1,200 pounds. This species, incidentally, does attain a total length of some 22 feet. The whale will be lifted out on this stretcher and then placed aboard a flatbed truck. And then you will see something which I think may intrigue you. You will see one of our local doctors, Dr. Max Weber, actually examining this animal and making an EKG.
Electrocardiograph.
An electrocardiograph. And this is will be the 4th whale that Dr. Weber has examined in this manner.
It doesn't bother the whale at all.
Not too much so. Dr. Weber is here attaching the leads on the tail flukes of the whale. Little suction cups, virtually identical equipment that you would examine either you or myself with.
He's done an excellent job with these animals, and the thing that I'm quite interested in is the arrangement, the way these electrodes are attached to the body.
Yes, we don't use needles. We use the rubber suction cups. You'll notice here how the whale lies so docilely on the truck, which is rather interesting.
The last of the electrodes then goes in position then just behind that side flipper, that arm flipper.
That is so, and he will there be examining the heart itself. And on the left here you see the tapes emerging from the EKG machine.
So a constant record is kept of the animal's physiological condition.
Well, more accurately, Earl, a record of the cardiovascular system, and more properly of the heart itself. Mrs. Weber down here, Mrs. Max Weber, the doctor's wife, is operating the EKG machine, and here you see the tracings coming away right now. And Doctor, perhaps you could explain the significance of these tracings to Dr. Harold.
How do these compare with human tracings? That would interest me tremendously.
Well, actually, they're almost identical, Dr. Harold. We have submitted these without informing the cardiologists that they were not human, and they were always undetected. They were assumed to be human electrocardiographic tracings.
I understand that your objective is to build a reference library of this kind of material on the marine mammals.
We hope to do so.
Oh, excellent. Well, Dr. Weber and Mrs. Weber, thank you very much for showing me my first electrocardiogram.
Thank you.
Dave, I understand that I am to join you later down at the Walrus Enclosure.
Right, and John Prescott's waiting for you right now.
Fine, I'll scoot right in there. Thank you.
Splendid. Bye-bye.
John Prescott, aquarist extraordinary.
Hello, Howard. Good to see you today.
What are you doing to that beautiful fish?
Oh, I'm adding a little bit of chemical to inhibit disease. This is a brand new grouper that just arrived from La Paz, Mexico.
Quarantine treatment.
That's right. We quarantine all of the new arrivals that come to Marineland.
Well, all aquaria have some problems that are similar, and that is in the way they handle water. But what do you do here at Marineland? How do you handle your water?
Well, we have a complex system, Earl. We divide our water up into many different tanks. But initially, we take 2,000 gallons of water from a seawater well, bring it to the Oceanarium. Then we divide it up. But to keep the water in our big tanks, our whale tank and our big fish tank, clean, we recycle and filter this water at an astounding rate of 3,500 gallons a minute for each tank.
Good water, filtered properly, but then you also have disease control problems.
Right. You have to add certain chemicals to the water. And over here we have an apparatus that helps us use our samples. We analyze the water chemistry twice a week on a minimum and as it demands. We add this particular chemical to inhibit algae growth as one item, and it also acts as a disease preventative, and it keeps our fish in better health. But we have to be careful not to get too much in the water. Thus our analysis every week.
John, I just bumped into something, in fact, that stabbed me on the side of the leg here. This is a phenomenal saw. Where did you get this rascal?
I got this soft blade in Mexico last year. It's a sample from an 18-foot female caught at San Blas.
What happened here?
Well, when we caught her, she was a little bit angry and smashed the boat and broke a tooth here and shattered another one. And these other two were embedded clear in the side of the boat.
You have a species of sawfish up in your big oval tank that no one's ever had before. You know, I'd like to go up there and look at that.
Here we go, Earl. This is the large 13-foot sawfish we brought from Mexico just a year ago.
Tremendous animal. Do they ever bother the divers?
No, they don't. Here's a school of bonita, too, that we've had in captivity almost 3 years. They are the longest-lived tuna fishes in captivity. And
That's the world's record.
Yes, it is, and we are currently studying their courtship and behavior. We found that their behavior is quite different from anything presupposed. They actually swim around this tank and court and spawn.
A spawning population within the tank, then.
Yes.
Now, these big fellows are, yellowtail.
Yeah, these are yellowtail, a very popular sport fish in California. And many of these fish have been here for 6 and 7 years.
You feed them well.
They're well fed. As you can see here, they're not interested in the food. They're also related to the amberjack, a popular fish in Florida.
Stripers.
Yes. In fact, these stripers came from the Steinhardt Aquarium in 1954.
They were much smaller then.
Yes, only 6 inches or so. As you see here, the diver is feeding our fishes. They get all of their food in this fashion. Some of the fish are fed by throwing food at the surface, but the majority get their food from the diver.
What about that green turtle there? Does he bother the diver?
No, the turtles are pesky because they eat more than anybody else, and they get a little fat. But he just comes down and takes the food very gently. There's just one other animal in the tank that'll bite another turtle. There's a large sheephead right in front of the diver, and it's from California. As you notice, look at this behavior of this bat ray.
I don't believe it.
They get very tame in captivity. There are about 15 specimens in the tank, and they're all this tame. They just come over and get their food.
And the poison spine is still on the tail.
Yes, it is. We don't cut off the poisonous spine. It's at the base of the tail. Many people think it's at the tip, and there. As you see, he touched the tip. The spine is not on that place. There goes a big grouper from the Gulf of California.
Tremendous number of fishes in this tank, and they all seem to get along very well together.
They do. The fishes in this tank range in size from a 4-inch blacksmith to the 13-foot sawfish, and everything in between from groupers and jacks, yellowtail.
And there's my favorite.
It's also my favorite, Earl. We brought this animal back from Mexico in a traveling oceanarium on a tank on a truck. As you can see, the big sawfish is very slow swimming.
We're into another water temperature now, and these are tropical marine forms.
Right. These are tropical fishes from the Pacific. They come from mainly Hawaii and the Gulf of California. There are a few Florida specimens thrown in. But one thing in common, they all come from coral reefs of the world. There's a lot of different kinds of fish. This long-nosed butterfly fish from Hawaii is known as Lau Willy Willy.
And into this system where you've done some work with sharks. Now, this to me is very, very interesting.
Yes, these are egg cases and containing the egg, the embryo, and now an empty egg from which the baby shark has already emerged. Some sharks bear their young alive, and these lay eggs. And the little shark develops in that egg. These eggs were laid in our tank last year, and here they're just hatching now. You can see that the large shark looks quite similar when it gets big. These are puffer sharks.
John, it's rather surprising to find that the adult of that little baby swallow shark has capabilities that other sharks don't have. They float on the surface.
Right. This is one that we left out a minute ago to blow up. It's like the puffer fish, Earl. It will blow right up and float.
Really looks like a balloon.
A balloon, right.
Oh, keep your hand out of his mouth there.
Yeah, he's got... I don't want to get bit either. They've got quite large teeth and a big mouth for such a small
Now,
shark.
after they burp themselves, of course, then they go down to the bottom. You know, one time we had one that floated around for 4 days before he finally was able to burp himself and then swim down to the
Get
bottom.
all the
again.
air out.
That's
Well,
a fantastic
normally
shark.
they're a bottom-living shark, and they don't swallow air in the ocean. They swallow
Right,
water.
but-
And that keeps them, they can hide in a hole by puffing this up.
A fantastic arrangement, and no one's figured out just why this shark should have it. But, you know, I want to talk to you about octopus now because you have one of the largest octopi, or podes, I guess it should be, that I've ever seen. Right.
We just recently got these. They were caught right out here off Southern California in about 300 feet of water, Earl.
This one would run about...
80 pounds.
80 pounds, and 120 is the maximum, so...
It's
this
getting
is,
up there. I'd say it's a good size. Any bigger octopus than 100 pounds you got to find in Hollywood.
You had a fight between this one and the one over here, accidentally, of course.
Yes, the one on this side grabbed a hold of that one and bit it. Now, we're a little worried because the bite of these animals is toxic. So we have to take care and keep them separated, Earl.
But the one that you wrestle with is the smaller one over here. I guess that's safer, is
The
it?
small one over here, we've been trying to get it to come out and teach it to come right out of the water, Earl.
So a bit of fish, some mackerel then in the water, and that brings him up. I see a tentacle coming up.
A little bit of mackerel, and away he should come. Here he comes, Earl.
Well, now you've got him out. What are you going to do with him?
I don't know.
Famous last words.
He'll just lift his head out. He can't
Oh,
quite
good.
get it up over the edge. And I don't want him to crawl away either.
I see all those bumps. That indicates he's in a bit of an ornery mood.
Yeah, come back. Come back over
I talk to him affectionately. No doubt he'll do that.
You see, they're pretty strong. These suction cups are very strong.
Anyone ever been...
I'm going to need some help in a little while here.
How many must... I'll put this audio thing over on the side here, and I'll see if I can give you a hand with this.
There he comes.
Now,
We're
may
trying to get him
I have
pretty-
another tentacle?
There's more than we've got hands. We're going to try to get him
Let's
up
see, there are
here.
8 here, and we only have
Here
4
we
hands.
go.
How do we do this?
Now,
Oh, that's
you
good.
see, this is where his mouth would be.
Oh, right there. Keep your hand
And
off the beak.
Well, they're very reluctant to bite.
Oh, they are? I'm glad you told me that. I'm a little bit worried.
Oh,
Well, you know, while you're wrestling with this octopus, I just happened to think, you know, they were working on that walrus thing, and I see somebody over there
in fact,
signaling.
they're over there looking for you.
Suppose I let you wrestle with this animal while I scoot down and see how they're doing with the walrus, I guess I should say, and in the meantime, I'll come back later and see how you're doing with
You can
it.
help me put it back. Just hurry.
Good, I'll be back later. Thank you, John. The history of keeping walrus in various zoos around the world has not been very good, with one exception, and that is this group of 4, which we see in the tank here. And Bill Monahan, as you well know, Dave Brown has been the man who has practically lived with these animals since they were wee young infants.
Yes, and I must say that it's been a very difficult job, Earl. These are very exotic animals, as the scientists call them. They've been raised here under trying circumstances, but so far we've been very fortunate. We haven't lost any of them. They're almost 3 years of age. I would say that the oldest, that is the biggest, weighs well over 1,100 pounds. Wouldn't you say so, Dave?
Yes, definitely.
Dave, I'd like to go back to the time when you actually caught them.
Well, you know, we caught these in the far north, and we journeyed to St. Lawrence Island, and then on the most westerly tip of St. Lawrence Island, in the village of Gamble, we went there to the Eskimo village and accompanied the hunters on their annual walrus hunt. And, of course, the walrus is a very important part of the Eskimo economy.
How much did they weigh at the time?
At the time of birth, and we got them shortly after birth, they weigh between 80 and 100 pounds. And they actually, believe it or not, they put on a pound a day, average a pound a day for birth.
Pound a day. Who is this old fellow that insists on sucking his flipper? Is that it?
Well, he's
that
not really so young, Earl. You know, he's only been weaned about 9 months.
Oh, really? Well, why does he suck that flipper?
A form of comfort.
Oh, is that what it is?
This is one thing that we couldn't really give the babies. We couldn't give them mother comfort, and so they started to kiss each other and suck each other's sides and their flippers, and this
I
compensated
think
them.
they're going to have a blanket pretty soon, you know, the security symbol.
Oh, is that what they
A little blanket to carry around.
They make the darndest bunch of noises that I've ever heard.
And here we have their keeper, Mr. Eddie Asper, feeding them formula. Actually, they don't really require formula anymore, but merely acts now as a vehicle for their various nutritional supplements, and so they get a gallon a day. Their main diet, of course, consists of clams and filleted bonita, which they eat in prodigious quantities.
A rather expensive diet.
It certainly is. In fact, when they were little fellows, their clams and cream alone cost over $1,500 a month. You know, they're remarkable animals, and I find that they have a very much more marked individual personality than do other pinnipeds, the sea lions or seals. And we have seen evidence of quite remarkably high reasoning ability demonstrated by certain of these four.
Well, these are the most marvelous animals I've seen in many a day. And Dave Brown, we certainly wish to thank you for giving us this quick review of the walrus, and Bill Monahan, our thanks to you for being our host. We'll certainly do that. Thank you. We've been at Marineland of the Pacific, where we have been the guests of Mr. William Monahan, Mr. Dave Brown, Mr. John Prescott. We've learned a little bit about Oceanarium Research and the many problems involved in there. Thank you. For our special animal, we come to the penguin enclosure at Marineland of the Pacific. The man who knows about these birds is Dave Brown. So, Dave, would you give us a little bit of background on this colony?
Yes, we started our penguin colony initially way back in 1954-5. And in those days, we had only 10 birds, and we had no reproductive behavior or mating activity at all until 1957, when we were able to introduce the birds into this rather lovely penguin garden, a place where they could be secret and feel secure.
How many youngsters have hatched in this enclosure?
Well, unbelievable that may seem, Earl, we've had over 40 babies now since 1957.
I was looking at this mother back here a little bit earlier who was sitting on this egg. Can we go over and perhaps get the camera in there, and we'll be able to pick this up?
It may interest you to know, of course, that this is the Humboldt penguin, which is found off the coast of Ecuador and Peru, and is the most northerly ranging of a species strictly limited to the southern hemisphere. Here in this nesting box, and we have several now occupied, we have a newly hatched chick. It's rather a delightful little creature, gray in color, not looking at all like a penguin. It's quite helpless and will be for several more weeks. The penguin takes, or the Humboldt penguin takes 60 to 64 days for it to incubate the egg. Both mother, cock and hen bird, take turns, usually 6 on, 6 off, in the incubation of the egg. And after 64 days, out comes a very delightful, rather cute-looking little chick. After this, mother and father also take the responsibility in equal shares of feeding it. They eat a little more food, convert this food to an oily substance, and it's this material that they feed to the youngster.
The parents are somewhat belligerent at all times.
They are very brave little birds, and I've been told that penguins have been seen literally to repulse the feared sea leopard, which would normally feed on penguins and other seals. They are very brave and they're very aggressive, particularly when they have chicks and eggs.
I can well believe that. Dave, it's been our pleasure to come down here and find out about this penguin colony. Thanks very much.
Delightful to see you. Well, do come back and see us again.
We'll do that.
Bye-bye.
We hope you've enjoyed our presentation. We'll look forward to seeing you on our next program. Thank you very much.